Hello chess friends and welcome to Azarov's chess channel and welcome to our Garry Kasparov series. So in this series we're following Garry Kasparov's life and his chess career, and we're back now in the 1985 World Chess Championship between Anatoly Karpov and Garry Kasparov. We're now in the game 5. So far we have covered 2 games from the super final, 1 winning game by Kasparov, 1 winning game by Karpov. The last game Karpov won with a great performance with the white pieces. Now in this game Anatoly Karpov played with the black pieces and Garry Kasparov with the white pieces. So before we start to analyze the game 5, I wanted to make also an announcement. The next week I'm going to start this new series, Become a Master in 1 year. So the idea is like this. I wanted to study online, so on stream, with you guys some basics in chess. I've created this basic in chess series already, but I wanted to show you also some different ideas. I wanted to improve this basics in chess series with some opening theory, so you can study basically chess from the beginning. And if you have anyone, maybe a friend or colleague at work that wants to study chess from the beginning till the end, really, it's not really till the end, but it's really we're starting really easy and then we're going to try some more and more complex ideas. Please invite him to join my channel and we can study it from the beginning, as I said, and then we'll become better and better. And then I think in a year, if you study with me, you can really have, I think, a decent theoretical knowledge in chess. So let's check out now the game 5. It was really again a struggle, a battle between the top grandmasters Karpov and Kasparov. Here Garry Kasparov decided to open with the move e4, and we haven't seen many times the move e4 between Karpov and Kasparov. Most of the times they played d4, more positional games. Here maybe Kasparov hoped for again a tactical battle, because in my opinion Kasparov was slightly better when it comes to tactics, but when it comes to positional understanding, Karpov was really incredible. Here he responded with the move e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5. We have the Ruy Lopez a6, the Murphy defense, bishop to a4, and now knight to f6. So attacking the pawn on e4, Kasparov simply castles. If you take on e4, the game becomes then really wild. There are tensions on the e file, but still this is playable then afterwards also for both sides. So here bishop to e7, Karpov goes into most natural line, very pragmatic style, bishop to e7, developing its minor piece and then preparing castling. Rook to e1, b5. We have seen now many times this move, because there is now the threat, because white has secured the e4 pawn. There is now this threat, bishop to c4, and then bishop takes c6, and then knight takes e5 would be something that black is trying to avoid. Here we have b5, bishop to b3, and now d6. d6 is a preparation to play bishop to g4 in some occasions, but the spinning idea I've explained also in some of my previous videos is not so dangerous. I think this spinning idea shouldn't bother white so much. There is also a new idea about this move d6. Okay, it's of course a healthy developing move, but when we flip the board, there are this King's Indian structures. It's similar to the King's Indian when black is trying maybe some f5 pawn breakthroughs. You see, we would have here the pawn chain, and there are this directed attacks, maybe to break the position with move f5, f4, and similar stuff. But it's of course a long-term plan. It's not working immediately. You have to prepare this, because white will strike in the center here, like Garry Kasparov did c3 with preparations to play the move d4. d4 is the main goal of white here. Here we have castling, and now h3, finally preventing this idea, this bishop to g4 idea, because in some occasions you see bishop to g4 is attacking the knight, and the knight is controlling our d4, and we want to play d4. We want to make some kind of a pawn central control. We want to have 2 advanced pawns on the d4 square and also on the e4 square. So bishop to b7, still common theory. The Ruy Lopez is really the most theoretical opening of any openings, I think, because there are lines even till move 30. It's still main theory, so that's why bishop to b7 here, still main line. b4, we have rook to e8, also pragmatic idea. When we have dynamics in the center, then the best way is to get your pieces towards the center. So whenever you feel there is some kind of a tension here in the center. It's time to bring all of your pieces towards the center, because some files could get opened, some diagonals could get opened, and then you want to have your pieces more towards the center, because we want to, of course, compete here on the E file, maybe even on the D file, because these are the files that could get opened in the near future. So knight from B to D2, bishop to F8, very also nice idea here, and we're also opening the E file. We want to battle with this rook on E1. We have A4, queen to D7, 8 takes B5. Maybe here knight to G5 would be slightly better for Garry Kasparov. This can be protected with rook to E7. It's not the point about that, but still I kind of like this move, knight to G5, when I analyze the game at home. It brings at least some kind of a weird position here for black. Black's bishop is blocked out. The rook is really in a weird square, and there are maybe now some attacking possibilities on the A file, because black has lost in this particular line the rook connection, and the rook connection, when it comes to dynamic position, is very important, because as we said, there are some files that could get open, and then maybe the 8th rank could be endangered. At least this is a sort of attacking move that you could try, because still this knight can be kicked away with h6, but at least you're provoking some weaknesses here on the king side. But still, after move the 8 takes b5, nothing went wrong for both sides. Still, this position has also been reached many times in chess history. 8 takes b5, we have 8 takes b5, and now rook to a8, and now bishop to a8. Very important here to take with the bishop, not with the rook. You could maybe take with the rook, but I don't think that you have gained anything. You have lost sometimes a little bit here the battle on the E file, and this bishop rook to A1 doesn't bring you so much. You still can play queen to C2, and this rook could be maybe then endangered with knight to B3 and similar ideas. You will have to again retreat with your rook. So there is simply nothing going on, I think, on the A file here after the move bishop to A8. Anatoly Karpov still decides to battle here on the E file. So D5. Garry Kasparov is locking now the center, which means now whenever we have the block pawn structure like this pawn structure like this, d6 e5 e4 d5, we should always evaluate our strength, especially of the bishops. And what we can notice now is that the blind square bishop of whites is simply a bad piece, because it's now suddenly blocked by its own pawn. This bishop on f8 is also very bad, because it's blocked on by its own pawns. So what black is hoping for is the trades of these bishops. Black would love to give up his dark square bishop for this dark square bishop on c1. White would love to give up maybe this bishop on b3 for this bishop on a8. These are the common relations between bishops and pawns. I've mentioned it many times in my videos. Here knight to a5 was played by Anatoly Karpov, and it's unbelievable that this is not the best move, because it still comes with an attack against the bishop on b3. But as we said, we don't want actually to take out this bishop. This bishop is bad anyway, so chasing a bad bishop is not the best of choices. Here it's unbelievable that probably the best move is the move knight to b8, and that's what I meant about this King's Indian structures. Now there are maybe ideas, queen to d8, rook to knight to d7, and then trying here g6 f5, because now you see that's what I meant about this King's Indian structures. If you're familiar with the King's Indian, this f5 pawn breakthrough motif is the main motif of the King's Indian, and that's the beauty of the Ruy Lopez game. The Ruy Lopez can apply so many strategies in chess. So many pawn structures can happen in the common Ruy Lopez, so that's why I think it's really one of the most theoretical openings. So now g6 f5 could be really a nice attacking formation here for black. Here we could still play something like queen to d8 and then knight to d7, and still this knight could control a very powerful square c5. So it's unbelievable that the retreating move is basically the best move here for black. But okay, still Karpov played here knight to a5. It's still playable, but now Kasparov makes maybe a slight inaccuracy. He plays the move bishop to a2. Here the better choice is probably to play the move bishop to c2, because what we are trying to do is control the f5 square. As I said, the f5 move could be the most natural idea here for black to push the pawn on f5, and now in the continuation maybe c6. Black has to break the position, black has to break now this advanced pawn, because what we are not allowing is this advanced pawn on d5. Now we have b4, knight to c4, knight to c4, and here after b takes c4, now bishop to g5. Well, that's I think a better line, because now the activity of white's piece is much better. If you try bishop to e7, or if you try for instance to take c takes d5, then we can simply take out bishop to f6, g takes f6, and now e takes d5. The good part about this line is that we're still controlling the light squares, and that's why this move bishop to c2 is much better than bishop to a2. This bishop is simply not doing anything on that square. Now we could try something like knight to h4, knight to f5, bishop to e4, really having a grip sort of on light squares, really cementing the position on light squares, and it would be a perfect position here for white. We could also try some batteries, queen to e2, then queen to e4, really bad position here for black. So here bishop to a2, still slightly better for white, but after c6 we have b4, and you see now that the bishop is still blocked out. Anatoly Karpov is controlling this square very good. Here knight to d7, we have c4. Here Kasparov is trying desperately to break the position to liberate his light square bishop, but now Karpov plays a good defensive move, because he realized that the c file could get open. Now there is nothing going on because the pawn structure is blocked. That's why Anatoly Karpov moves the rook to the c file. It's a new file that could get open, so that's why it was, I think, a great move. Maybe not so easy to find, at least in the top grandmaster. Maybe it's easy to find, but for us, maybe lower rated players, I think this is really great move. Rook to c8, opening the c file, great positional move. So d takes c6, we have queen to c6, now b4. Garry Kasparov wants to split here the pawn chain and attack the e5 pawn. We have knight to d8, bishop to b2, and now d takes c5. We have b takes c5, queen to c5, and now bishop to e5. Okay, let's stop and evaluate the position. The position is about equal. We have now an open position, it's a dynamic position, and of course Garry Kasparov loves the dynamic position, but still Karpov has a strategical element. It's the pass pawn, and the pass pawn can be really annoying, because you get many times deflected by the pass pawn, because when black pushes the pawn further, then you get a little bit scared. You're trying to move your pieces towards the pass pawn, and then the pieces are a little bit more passive. So that's why I like simply more black's position. I like also this queen and rook battery on the c file. Very nice positional game so far by Karpov. He didn't get distracted by the activity of Garry Kasparov pieces. Here after move bishop to e5, here simply knight to d7. Still you see how Anatoly Karpov keeps the position compact. He has his pieces glued together. He's not allowing these pieces to get loose somehow on the board. After the move knight to d7, bishop to b2, we have queen to b4, and now knight to b3. This is, I think, the move that it's not evaluated as a mistake, inaccuracy here, or a blunder, but it's I think it's a start of the catastrophe here, of the disaster by Garry Kasparov. Knight to b3 is really a bad move, and if you think about it more, the knights are really perfectly fine. They're glued together, they're cemented. A better idea here is to play simply queen to a1. This gives, I think, white some kind of an opportunity, maybe to attack the g7, maybe to include this rook into the game, and still nothing is going to happen, because these knights are protecting each other, and that's are simply the rules of dynamic games and then of open games. You shouldn't have your pieces loose on the board. And here after the move knight to b3, you see now this knight is simply connected to the defense of the rook. This knight bishop is blocked out, and I'm not sure about this move, but it was, I think, the start, the beginning of Garry Kasparov's problems here. After move knight to b3, here Anatoly Karpov plays simply knight to c5. He wants to get rid of his bad knight. The knight is not good here. And here after the move bishop to a1, again Garry Kasparov makes a slight inaccuracy, simply knight takes c5. After queen to b2, rook to e2 is an idea to defend this position, and this could be playable. Still, this knight has to move somewhere, but at least we're getting a tempo against the queen. The queen is not welcome here on b2. Then we could try even knight to d3 and similar stuff. We would try then to battle against this isolated pawn, but here after move bishop to a1, it gives now Anatoly Karpov simply the opportunity to take out now this pawn. It's a much better position now for Karpov. Here, what should you do? There is now the main defensive strategy would be here to play something like knight to c5. It's the only move I think that holds the position. After knight to c5, we have bishop to f3. That's the problem. As I said, the pieces are not glued together anymore because of this knight to b3 move. Here g takes f3 would be a possibility, but now after queen to c5, this could be playable because Garry Kasparov still has the bishop pair in an open position, maybe with this bishop to make something happen. But again, he made a mistake, knight to d4, and it gives now Anatoly Karpov the opportunity to regroup, to get his pieces into the game, and simply Anatoly Karpov is now up a piece, up a pawn, and it's a much better position here for black. Queen to e2, knight to d6. Knight takes c5 comes a little bit too late because after queen to c5 we have queen to g4. It's of course an attack against the g7, but still this g7 is protected. Here rook to e8, we have rook to d1, and now bishop to g6. Very nice defensive setup. You see Karpov is not doing here any complications. He's making still his firm and compact position. Now it's time to push the pawn when the position allows it. Then again, white's pieces will be deflected to the queen side. Queen to f4, we have queen to b4, queen to c1, bishop to e4, rook to e1 attacking the bishop, and now queen to a5 attacking the bishop, bishop to b3, and now again a great positional move, queen to a8. You see now, look at this glued together position. So the knight is protecting the rook, and the bishop is protecting the knight. The knight is protecting the bishop. The queen is protecting the bishop. The rook and the queen are building a battery. So this is what I meant. This is a setup that you're basically searching for in open position. So you don't want to have your pieces loose on the board. And basically Garry Kasparov did the same. Bishop here is protecting the knight. Knight is protecting the bishop. Still, it's a good setup for white, but with this extra pawn, of course, black is much better. Queen to b2, we have b4, rook to e3, bishop to g6, and now after trades of rooks, queen to c1, and now knight to e4. Again, this knight comes very active into the game. We have bishop to d5, and now knight to c5. After knight to b3, we have knight to d3. Again, this knight comes very active into the game, and believe me or not, in this position, Garry Kasparov decided to resign. So it's maybe not immediately to resign, but it was part also of Garry Kasparov's respect for Anatoly Karpov. He knows that this should be probably winning for black, but he gave up the game. He maybe try to regroup, try to settle, try to maybe recover, and then attack maybe in the next game, because it's obviously that maybe this could be playable. You can maybe somehow hang on to a draw, but still Anatoly Karpov played here an outstanding game, and he outplayed here Garry Kasparov with the black pieces. Incredible stuff. I'm not sure what would be the continuation. What black wants probably to do is simply trade off more pieces, maybe trade off this knight, maybe even trade off some bishops and go into a favorable endgame with one pawn up. The good part is that the king is still not endangered. Still, we can create some breathing spaces with h6. So as I said, in this position Garry resigned, so that means that Anatoly Karpov in the game 5 took the lead. It was a 3-2 result now for Anatoly Karpov. We'll check out, of course, the continuation of the super match. I think so far we have really seen some great games, especially by Karpov. Karpov lost the first game, but now he had 2 consecutive wins. Incredible stuff by the boa constrictor. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Meanwhile, you can watch my other Garry Kasparov's games from the series. Here's the link. And if you want to see maybe the best chess games of all times, check out my best chess games of all time series. Here's also the link. And if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.